I'll second.
Alright, so Ashley and I had gender issues, but Ashley's not here, but it's okay. So she's in this presentation. So women before industrialization, they played a big domestic role, and they raised the children, and they made clothes by hand and stuff, and prepared the food. And they also helped a lot with like the farming, because like that was kind of like a family career, like everyone in the family participated in it. So, of course, like men probably did like the more lifting and carrying stronger work, but women did participate in farming. So, just so like that we have like the basics on like the women in the factories, which is like what the whole thing is about. The number of women in the industrial labor force grew, especially after 1870. And many young women entered the factories and were producing consumer goods, like there was food and lots of like textiles, like clothing and stuff was the main one. And then the goods that they were producing, oh, I just said that, sorry. So, Mr. Ray, you're going to tell me about the pronunciation. Walton Lowell? Is that right?
Walton Lowell. Yep.
Okay. System. So Frances Lowell hired young unmarried women to work in factories, and they have really good working conditions because like that's what he wanted to do. He actually passed away before it started, but his people helped him. But so he was like the start of the early stages of like the factories in the U.S. and he was eager to create like textile mills with good working conditions, and he provided cash wages and company-run boarding houses, and then he like let the girls like go to church and stuff, and like they had like curfews, so it was like all under control. And he would usually start with like the women in like the rural areas because the women were like more apt to go, because although like their fathers and stuff didn't want them to, it was like better because they had like a wage and they could get married. And what was it? Only one third of the farming women that went to go work in the factories married a farmer in the end of their life. They usually married people that they found like in the city and stuff. And he usually found age range of like 15 to 35. I think that says that, yeah, it says 15 to 35 years that he was looking for to like the age range, because women would get married and then move on in their lives and like go away from the factory, and then they'd have like daughters who then could go to the factories, and then that way there was no permanent working class like he saw in Britain. I want to say Britain, but he saw that in Europe, and he didn't want to have that because there was like slums and stuff that came from that. So the Seneca Falls Convention was led by Elizabeth Stanton, I think is how you say her name, and Lucretia Mott. And
Oh, you
Lucretia. Thank you. So the Seneca Falls Convention was led by these two women here, and on July 19th, 1848. So it was a big like women's rights convention where about 200 women joined in like the first day, and they had like different sessions where they discussed different topics, but it was just to like talk about the rights of women and stuff. And by the end of the convention, it like helped give women control of their property and then shared guardianship of their children and the right to sue. And although they didn't earn the right to vote, they like asked for it and they like had talked about it. but they had sparked the idea for Women in the Future. And,
So what, do you know who's who? What are your photos, do you know?
oh, that's Elizabeth, and then that's
Lucretia?
Lucretia.
Okay, and what's that other thing you got there?
Oh, that's, I think it was like a little sign of it, but that's like the new version. I don't think that's the real one. But, yeah. So the lives of women changing due to industrialization, like working in the factories. The working conditions had changed like drastically from the Lois system. So they didn't like have like board houses, and they didn't have like all these nice things that they would provide, because as like the business grew, so did the need for workers, and they cared less about the workers, and they just kind of wanted them to like make stuff for them. And women and children had made up for more than half of the factory workers in the early 19th century. So the working conditions became very like unsanitary and dangerous. And you can see here how like that's maybe like how it started, and then like it got very, very crowded. And so like you were just like assigned to your spot for like however many hours you had to work. And so very crowded, unsanitary, dangerous, because machinery was also changing, evolving. And so like with that there was like more problems, it was more dangerous, things were going faster and whatnot. So women were faced with factory work, and then also having to like go back and like do domestic work and then raise their kids. So they kind of like took on like 2 jobs, like most women do here now. There's a lot of women that like work and then also raise kids and stuff. And men had supervisory roles over women and got paid more. So women were still like very inferior to men. And as the need for the growing economy, families became more dependent on like the wages of women and their children, which I'm pretty sure, Lydia, was that what you talked about in yours? Yeah. So like the child labor. And then I wrote a conclusion just because I know like that's kind of like we're taking notes on it. So for some women, the Industrial Revolution provided independent wages and a better standard of living because women could move around, but for the majority, factory work in the beginning of the 19th century resulted in a hard life for women, and they were still seen as inferior to men. Although it is important to keep in mind that the negative effects of industrialization opened the eyes to many women to see that they deserved equal rights as men, and that influenced the rights that women have today. And then, and I had another book in there, but I used it, but I lost it, so I couldn't put in the
You
title.
lost it?
Well, it's in my room somewhere.
Oh, okay. There's the library book. They're going to be on you?